This conference will now be recorded.
So in case of UI5 theory, I can say the client, or I can say end user, will make use of a browser from a desktop, or it can be a laptop, or even tablet, or a mobile device, any smartphone. So the end user can make use of any type of device in case of UI5 theory apps. That is the main advantage here, and this is the main purpose of introducing UI5 theory. So we can access our SAP data through mobile, tablet, laptop, and desktop. So these are technically browser-based applications here. But ultimately, they interact with the server like ECC, or it can be CRM, SRM, or even HANA server. So the server can be anything in this case. And technically, there will be request and response between client and server. So these are browser-based applications. So browser-based applications will have HTTP request and HTTP response. Every browser-based app generally has HTTP request and HTTP response between client and server, because these are web applications, or I can say browser-based applications. So in case of this UI5 theory apps, the screen is loaded here. The end user interacts with the app from a browser, from any device. They can interact with the app. But not only that, I can say the screen related code is completely executed here. Within the browser, all screen related operations gets executed. Not only that, the screen rendering related to screen elements like table, or a drop down checkbox, a radio button, etc., etc. So there will be several screen elements. All the screen elements related functionalities are also gets executed within browser itself. And not only that, all the event handlers related code and its functionalities are also executed within this browser itself in case of UI5 theory app. And not only that, all the front-end validations, that means generally we call it as screen related validations. All front-end validations, or you can call it as screen related validations. So those functionalities are also executed here in browser itself. And if there is any dynamic changes like dynamic changes on screens, or it can be screen elements like enable, disable, visible, invisible, these type of things. And not only that, there can be any text change or a description change or a message change. All those type of things can happen by executing directly within the browser. But except database operations. So the database operations for UI5 theory apps, they are completely executed always inside server. Only database operations like select query, insert, delete, these type of things, update. So this type of operations gets executed inside server. So that means almost like 95% of the functionalities are getting executed within the end user machine under browser, except database operations. Database operations are always executed in server. So that's the reason why these applications are stateless applications, because these are nothing but client side applications, because everything is executed here. So let me just mention this point. Okay, it's already mentioned. Functionalities are almost like almost 95% functionalities gets executed at client side within the browser, except database operations. So that's the reason why they are stateless apps. But not only that, there are many other differences here. SAP ABAP apps and UI5 apps. There are many other differences. Let me just highlight that. So in case of normal ABAP applications, as I told you, these are stateful and these are stateless. But not only that, ABAP applications, they are technically considered as GUI based applications, or I can say GUI based screens like VA01, MM01, VA02, all those standard transaction codes, they are purely GUI based screens. But in case of UI5 Fiori, all the screens will be browser based, or I can say a web based. So browser based, or you can call it as web based applications. And in case of normal ABAP applications, these are mostly suitable for intranet. They're mostly suitable for intranet to access the apps within the organization network. But in UI5 Fiori, they're suitable for both intranet as well as internet. So you can access these apps comfortably from within the organization, outside the organization, based on the roles and the authorization. But performance wise, there won't be any problem whether it is intranet or internet. So they're suitable for both. And in case of normal ABAP applications, for screen designing, we have maximum 15 screen elements like table, drop down, checkbox, button. So there are very limited screen elements in ABAP development for ABAP screens. But in case of UI5 Fiori, screen designing is like we can develop the screens with the help of 150 screen elements, or I can say more than 150 screen elements. We have several screen elements, so we can provide more user interactivity features. We can develop the screens according to the client requirement, and we can satisfy all the user interactivity features because we have more number of screen elements here, almost 10 times more than normal ABAP screen elements. So not only that, I can say ABAP applications, they are suitable only for something like desktops or laptops. ABAP applications, they are suitable only for desktops or laptops, but UI5 Fiori apps, they are suitable for desktops. They are suitable for desktops, laptop, tablets, and even mobile devices. It supports all the devices here. That is the main target of UI5 Fiori. So in present scenario, the data, the application has to be accessed from all types of devices. That is how the world has changed. So world has moved from desktop, laptop to tablet and mobiles. So that's the reason why UI5 Fiori is introduced, and that is one of the main reason. And not only that, I can say ABAP applications, these are lightweight application, these are heavyweight applications. In general, these are heavyweight applications. Why? Because they consume something like more memory and more time to load. All ABAP applications, we consider them as heavyweight applications just because they consume more memory at runtime and they take more time to load the screens. But in case of UI5 Fiori, UI5 Fiori apps are completely lightweight applications. Lightweight applications. And why they're lightweight? Just because they consume very less memory. At runtime, they consume less memory and less time to load. That's the reason why these are lightweight applications. So that's the reason why performance is also much better compared to ABAP application, because these are lightweight. And similarly, in case of normal ABAP application, normal ABAP applications, they are not suitable for something like internet features, or I can say web enabled features. So ABAP application doesn't support most of the web enabled features. But in case of UI5 Fiori, they're suitable and supports all types of internet features. For example, even audio video integration, we can do it just by writing 2 lines of code. Audio video integration can also happen in our UI5 Fiori just by writing 2-3 lines of code. So these things are possible. Why it is possible? Because SAP Ui5 Fiori supports something like HTML features. Whenever we want to achieve internet features or web enabled features, whenever required, wherever required, we can use some HTML tags. SAP Ui5 Fiori framework completely supports HTML features. We don't use all the features, but whichever is important, whichever is required for our business application development, that can be integrated inside Ui5 Fiori app. For example, audio video integration. Like that, there are many other options. And similarly, ABAP applications, the screen appearance is something like average. That means the look and feel of ABAP screens is normal, or I can say it's not so attractive in nature. But here, Ui5 Fiori apps screens appearance, that means look and feel, can be more attractive just because we can add CSS options. So the screens can be developed to whichever extent we want by providing more attractive and user interactivity features, because SAP Ui5 Fiori supports something like CSS, that is cascading style sheets. Let me just write it, cascading style sheet. So because of CSS, we can develop our screens with more attractive features. So not only that, I can say SAP Ui5 Fiori apps, they are stateless apps, and we are calling it as like execution of functionalities. Execution of functionalities are done. Okay, let me write it like this. Otherwise, functionalities are executed at client side. But how that is possible? We are trying to make sure that 95% of the functionalities are executed at client side. That's the reason why we are calling it as stateless. But this is possible just because SAP Ui5 Fiori supports JavaScripting. It supports JavaScripting. So that's the reason why we can make sure that our functionalities are purely client side. That's the reason why we can also call them as stateless apps. And not only that, here in Ui5 Fiori, applications can be developed. Applications can be developed with something like screens using JavaScripting, and applications can be developed with screens using XML. So when you develop the screen can be developed in both the ways. By using JavaScripting syntax, we can develop the screens. And also by using XML syntax, we can develop the screens. So in our training sessions, we are going to cover both the things along with HTML, CSS, JavaScripting, and the screen development in both the ways by using XML as well as JavaScripting. So JavaScripting syntax is mainly used in normal UI5 apps. And XML syntax is used in all standard SAP Fiori apps and SAP Fiori like custom applications. So according to SAP best practices, SAP has recommended screen development for SAP UI5 with JavaScripting. And SAP Fiori and Fiori like applications, the mainly recommended syntax is XML. Okay. Yeah. So both we are going to discuss in practical. No need to worry. This is just an overview. So in simple words, what I want to say is, so UI5 has all these things: JavaScripting features, HTML features, CSS features, cascading style sheets, and also XML. So we can develop an end-to-end application only by understanding all these things: JavaScripting, HTML, CSS, and XML. And not only that, if you closely observe the backend services for database operations, will be either OData ABAP service using ABAP syntax, and backend service can be OData HANA service using HANA ABAP syntax, or OData external service that can be using a third party, something like third party programming language syntax. It all depends. If it is SQL Server, we can use SQL Server syntax inside that external service. So generally for our UI5 Fiori apps, the backend services for dealing with the database operations will be of three types. It can be a normal ABAP service, or HANA based service, or an external service. So let us understand how exactly these things will come into picture with a simple architecture. So let me take one diagram. Okay, this is not required. This is important. Let me just save it. This is SAP UI5 Fiori apps execution behavior. Okay, and this is SAP ABAP applications execution behavior. So the execution behavior is exactly opposite to each other. Now let us come back to this architecture point. So generally there can be a normal SAP ECC or CRM or SRM. So for these type of backend systems, we try to make use of something like SAP NetWeaver Gateway. We can make use of SAP NetWeaver Gateway component. Under that, we can develop OData ABAP services. And OData services, that means ABAP services, ultimately contains mainly database functionalities. So ABAP service, you can use it for interacting with normal ECC or direct CRM or SRM component here. It can be used for any of these systems. Now, there can be HANA based system here. For example, there is SAP HANA system. For SAP HANA based system, what we do is we can develop HANA based services here. HANA based services ultimately contains mainly database functionalities. HANA based OData services also contains database functionalities which deals with HANA backend according to our UI5 Fiori frontend. It can be like this. And not only that, you can say there can be a non-SAP system here, like third-party systems, third-party databases, something like that. So in case of non-SAP systems, we make use of OData external services. And ultimately, this also contains database operations. So OData, sorry, this is OData external service. External service, but ultimately it contains database operations dealing with non-SAP system. This is how it looks like. So let me just write one simple note here. OData services are of three types, like OData web service for database operations with regular ECC, CRM, SRM, etc. And OData HANA services, we are going to use it for database operations with HANA based system. And OData external services, we can use it in the front end for dealing with database operations with third party systems, or I can say non-SAP systems. But ultimately, all these types of services contains database functionalities. OData services mainly deals with database operations. So that's a key point that we need to remember. Whenever I say OData, that means I'm referring to a database functionality. So for UI5 Fiori apps, compulsory OData service is required. If you want to develop end-to-end application, at least one OData service is required to deal with the database operations. Now, not only that, what we do is we develop the front-end screens. So SAP has provided something like SAP Ui5 framework. SAP has provided SAP Ui5 framework, and that framework contains libraries, it contains classes, it contains methods, it contains events, as well as properties. So SAP Ui5 framework mainly contains these things: the standard libraries, standard classes, standard methods, standard events, and standard properties. So by using this framework, we can develop custom applications. So the framework is already provided by SAP, but what we do is, as a developer, we develop custom front-end apps and we consume OData services for backend interaction. So technically, front-end app developed using UI5 framework, they can interact with any type of service here. That is possible. So these apps which are developed using direct UI5 framework, those apps, to be more specific, we call it as UI5 apps. Just let me highlight this with red color. Yeah. Now, not only that, what SAP has done is SAP has provided something like SAP Fiori templates. That is also provided by SAP here. SAP Fiori templates. And SAP Fiori templates, it can be like work list template, or it can be a master detail template. So SAP has provided some templates like this. So we can use SAP Fiori templates directly, and we can straight away build the application. That is also possible. So if you use a template, our development becomes much easier and much faster. If in case if you use a template based application development. But technically, we can use Fiori templates along with SAP UI5 framework. We have to use that once again. So which means we have to use all these things. We use libraries, etc. This is compulsory. Along with that, we can use Fiori templates, and finally we can develop something like custom front-end apps. And here we can consume OData services. Any type of service we can consume, it all depends. So that means it can interact with any type of service from this application. So the point here is we can develop apps and consume services with the help of UI5 framework along with Fiori templates. So if we use two things, if we use combination of these two things, then we consider these apps as SAP Fiori like apps. These are SAP Fiori like apps. In SAP Fiori like apps, we use both UI5 framework and Fiori templates. So that is going to happen. And not only that, there can be something like standard applications which are provided by SAP. Something like SAP has provided several standard front-end applications. And these standard applications consume standard OData services. They consume standard OData services. It can be of any service, but they are standard services in this case, and they can interact with any of these systems through these services. And I can say all the standard apps will use standard OData services in general. So these standard front-end apps, we consider it as regular SAP Fiori apps in general. All standard apps, if required as a developer, we can customize these things. We can enhance these applications according to client requirement. That is possible. But all the standard apps by default, they are Fiori apps. So let me just save this. This is a basic simple architecture, and the types of apps you will understand here in this diagram. But I want to mention a simple note. SAP UI5 apps, applications, custom applications developed using directly SAP UI5 framework. Okay. But they can also consume OData services. Whenever you want to deal with database functionality, ultimately OData service has to be consumed. That is compulsory. So all UI5 apps, they are custom front-end apps by default. You can consider this. And not only that, SAP Fiori like apps. So SAP Fiori like apps are also custom front-end apps developed using SAP UI5 framework plus SAP Fiori templates. So if you add template, then our development becomes much faster. Some piece of code is auto-generated through template. So we can develop our application in short time. So we can use a combination of UI5 framework plus templates under Fiori, and we can consume OData services for database operations. That is common point. And not only that, there are SAP Fiori apps. These are all standard front-end apps developed by SAP, not by developer. They are already developed by SAP. These are nothing but ready-made apps. And these applications consume OData standard services. Standard OData services, ultimately for database operations. So, but what type of apps are provided by SAP? So SAP has provided standard Fiori apps for dealing with common business functionalities. Let me just highlight that. Okay, so yeah, right. So SAP Fiori apps, SAP Fiori standard apps are provided by SAP for dealing with common business functionalities. What do you mean by common business functionalities? Let us understand that. So SAP has identified several functionalities as common functionalities across various organizations. Across various organizations, there are many functionalities which are common. So for common functionalities, SAP has provided standard Fiori apps. For example, like approve or reject timesheet. That's a very common business application. So for that, SAP has provided a standard Fiori app. And approve or reject something like leave request. That's a very common business functionality. So SAP has provided a Fiori app for that. It's a ready-made app. And approve or reject purchase order. Something like this, purchase order. So SAP has provided Fiori app, which is a ready-made app available here. And not only that, checking price and availability of material. Checking price and availability of material, that's a very common functionality. So SAP has provided a Fiori app for that. Not only that, tracking sales order. Tracking sales order. So that's a common functionality. So ready-made Fiori app is available. And changing sales order, that is also a common requirement. So SAP has provided a Fiori standard app for that. It's a ready-made app. And something like creating sales order. Creating sales order, that's a very common functionality. So SAP has provided standard Fiori app. So like this, SAP has provided some hundreds of standard applications for SD, MM, finance, controlling, HR, CRM, SRM, etc. And HANA based functionalities are also available. So the point is, whatever the standard app is available, those standard apps again comes under one of this category here. It can come under sales and distribution or material management, finance, controlling, HR, CRM, SRM, or even any HANA based functionality. So SAP has provided hundreds of standard apps we can customize and enhance according to our requirement. As a developer, if required, we can enhance these standard SAP Fiori apps using SAP Web ID tool. We are going to use that. This is the most suitable tool for our Fiori apps. So we are going to install this and we are going to develop the apps, custom applications, and we can also enhance the standard applications. So in our training, what we do is we try to make use of these type of tools. Like one is SEGW, that's actually a transaction code, or you can call it as a tool in terms of normal development. So SEGW, we are going to use it for OData services development. And we are going to use SAP Web ID. That's a very important tool and most recommended for SAP Fiori like applications. SAP Fiori standard apps and SAP Fiori something like custom apps also can be developed through Web ID tool. This is recommended. And in our training, we will try to use even Eclipse for some of the apps. For SAP Ui5 apps, we'll try to use Eclipse so that you will get some knowledge on how to use the Eclipse tool as well. So these are the three main tools with which we are going to develop end-to-end applications. So here you can see, let me go with something like these tools. Let me just open that. Here you can see we are going to use OData server. Let me just log in. So here you can see something like SEGW. That's a T code we are going to use. And that is SAP Gateway Service Builder. SAP Gateway Service Builder. And here we can develop our various OData services. Okay, so this is one thing. We are going to use it. Let me just put it here. So which is technically SEGW. It's a T code, but you can also call it as a tool. And this is for OData development. Right, so this is one thing. And then here you can see there is Eclipse tool. Let me just open that. So I'm going to explain in detail how to install this each and every tool. In detail, I'll be explaining, no need to worry. But just let me open as of now. So here, what we do is we develop our front-end screens. So there will be something like UI5 plugins. By using UI5 plugins, we're going to develop our UI5 applications here. Under this tool, if you go to this, about Eclipse, so here you can see, this is one of the tool we are going to use it. This is an Eclipse tool. Under Eclipse, you can see there is SAP Ui5. One second. Okay, you can see this is our Eclipse tool. Within Eclipse tool, you can find something like SAP Ui5 plugins. By default, these plugins are not available by default when you install Eclipse. What we need to do, we need to externally add these plugins to the Eclipse tool and we can develop our Ui5 apps here. So SAP Ui5 apps development, we'll try to do it using Eclipse. Just remember that. Now, not only that, we are going to use one more tool. Let me just close this. Let me just close all these things. Okay, this one, let me just save it for future reference. And this one, Eclipse, let me just save it here. And not only that, we are going to make use of something like SAP Web ID, which is the most important in this training. So let me open that SAP Web ID tool. Let me just start that tool. It's a local installation tool. So let me log in through browser. I'm just trying to introduce the tools, but how to install step by step, I'll explain. No need to worry, so that we can overcome all the challenges. So SAP Web ID, let me just log in. You can see it is loading SAP Web ID tool. And here what we can do is we can develop our applications. So what type of applications we can develop? Let us see that here. So inside Eclipse tool, inside Web ID tool, if you closely observe, we will find something like a Fiori worklist template. This is actually a template. By using worklist template, we can develop Fiori apps. By using master detail template, we develop the Fiori apps. And if you want, you can also develop normal UI5 apps. So these are the three main categories in our development. There can be direct UI5 app, or there can be a Fiori app through a template. So ultimately, we develop these type of applications from this particular Web ID tool. Okay, let me just take this, the actual screen. This is a home screen and this is a development workspace. You can shift from this to this. So this is the tool. We will try to use it. It's a local installation. We can install locally, and it's a Web ID. And what we do is in our training, we use it for Fiori-like applications and standard Fiori apps. So for that, we use SAP Web ID. So by the end of the training, you will be thorough with these three tools. Okay, let me just highlight this and save it. So I'll be forwarding all the screenshots so that you can refer for your future reference. Okay, so these are the three tools. I've just introduced it, but now let us go with some basic behavior between OData and something like UI5 Fiori. So technically, what happens is there will be SAP Fiori or UI5 frontend. There can be UI5 Fiori frontend apps. So these apps are mainly for screens, nothing more than that. And as I told you, there will be OData services. And as we have understood that it contains database operations, nothing more than that. But let us understand the behavior developed by SAP. SAP has developed one framework which will synchronize OData with UI5 Fiori. So let us understand that. So in this case, when we develop our front-end apps, what we do is in the front-end screens, we use create method here. But create is a front-end method in UI5 Fiori, but that is designed to execute create entity method in OData service. So when you call create from UI5 Fiori app on button click, then it is going to trigger create entity method of OData service. And here we can implement something like insert functionality or insert statement for inserting the data into database tables. Similarly, SAP has provided in the front end, we can make use of something like bind element method. That's a front end method. So bind element is a front end method, but it is going to automatically execute get entity method in OData service. Get entity in OData service that is automatically triggered. That is how the framework is designed. And here get entity, what we do is we write select query, but it will fetch 0 or 1 record. 0 or 1 record maximum. In this case, if you use get entity, you may get a output record or you may get a 0 record. It all depends. But bind element is a front-end UI5 theory method which is going to trigger get entity method. Thereby it executes select statement. And not only that, there is update front-end method. Update is a front-end method that is going to trigger update entity method of OData service. That is how the framework is designed. And here, as a developer, we are going to write some update statement for updating the data. Similarly, SAP has provided remove as a front-end method. From UI5 theory, we can use remove method, and remove method automatically triggers delete entity method of OData service. And here it executes delete statement. That means we are going to write the code inside that for deleting the data. And not only that, we can use bind rows method. That's a front-end method. So these are front-end methods. You can use it in UI5 or theory. These are front-end methods. These are applicable for both UI5 and theory apps. So when you use bind rows as front-end method, it is going to execute get entity set method. Get entity set method of OData service, and here we write select query, and you can fetch n number of records. You can get one or many records. When you're expecting collection of records, then better implement your select query under get entity set method. But this is triggered from the front-end application by using bind rows method. And similarly, there is one more method like bind aggregations or aggregation. That's a front-end method. So bind aggregation is a front-end method that also triggers the same method here. Get entity set method, it also triggers this method. And it also executes select query here, and it can fetch n number of records. But technically, why there is a difference here? The difference is because bind rows will internally use a table from sap.ui.table library. There is a library in the front end. When I introduce, you'll get more clarity. So when you use a table from this library, then we are going to use bind rows method. And when we use something like a table from sap.m, that's another library. So if you are using this library in the front end, bind aggregation triggers the same method, get entity set. So depending upon the library and the class, the respective method is triggered. Okay, let me remove this. This is not important now at this stage. Okay, now, not only that, there are several other methods. So, but as of now, I can say this create, this we call it as C, and bind element, this is for fetching single record, we call it as R, read operation. Update, we call it as U, and remove, we call it as D, and bind rows, we use it for query operation Q, and this also query operation. So these first 5 methods, these are technically considered as CRUD Q methods. Okay, let me just write somewhere here. First 5 methods, because we are going to write some more methods which are non-CRUD methods, but first 5 CRUD methods are considered as something like CRUD Q methods. Create, read, R indicates read, U indicates update, D indicates delete, and Q indicates something like query operation. But the behavior of these methods will remains same for both UI5 development as well as Fiori development. There is no change. And the code, when you write this, also remains same. The approach remains same. Everything remains same as long as you use these methods in both UI5 and Fiori. And not only that, you can see there is one more method like call function in the front end. This is not related to function module, but this is a call function that is a front end method here. So this call function method, we can use it to execute something like execute action method at OData level. At OData level, it executes execute action method. And here you can implement select query in this also. That is possible. This is just an alternative one for CRUD methods. And not only that, here we use call function. We can use call function and we can execute. This is execute action. Let me correct it. Execute action is the name of the method. And here, if you want, you can execute insert statement or even update statement. That is also possible here. But from the front end, when you are using call function, you need to use get option. So for executing select query through execute action, we use get option via call function statement. And if you want to execute insert or update through execute action, then we have to use call function with post operation here. Post is required from the front end. And not only that, there are few more methods, like there is another create method. We use this method along with /$value. Create is once again a front end method. We use it along with /$value, and that is going to trigger something like update stream method. Update stream method. And we use this method for something like file upload purpose. When you want to upload a text file or PDF file or a GIF file or any type of image file, including PDF and text file. So whenever you go for file upload via OData service, generally we implement our code inside update stream method. But update stream method is triggered from front end through create with /$value. We are going to do it practically, no need to worry. And not only that, we are going to use again like a read operation here or a read method with /$value. So in this case, it is going to execute get stream method. Get stream method. So get stream method, what we do is we use it for file download functionality. Whenever you want to download any type of file, JPG, text, PDF, doc file, any type of file, then you can write some piece of code in get stream method. And in the front end, you can manage through read and /$value. Similarly, we can have something like one more create method with navigation property. We are going to have one more create method, but through navigation property, we are going to use it in the front end UI5 Fiori, and that is going to call create deep entity method. So create with navigation property from the front end, when you trigger that, it is going to trigger create deep entity method of OData service. And inside create deep entity method, as a developer, we are going to implement something like insert header data plus its item data. So we can insert header record and its corresponding item records here by using create deep entity method. So in some of the standard apps also, they are using all these methods. So inserting header along with its items, it's a combination. So for that we use create deep entity. But in the front end, we have to use create with navigation property. And similarly, we can use something like bind rows with navigation property, or you can use bind aggregation with navigation property. So in both the situations, it is going to trigger something like get expanded entity method. Get expanded entity method, and we can use this to fetch. That means we can fetch header data and its corresponding items data. So create deep entity method and get expanded entity method, these two are exactly opposite to each other. So through create deep entity, we are inserting header and items. But through get expanded entity, we are fetching header and items. So these two are exactly opposite functionalities. So we are going to use all these things, but just remember this note. All the above methods are common for SAP UI5 apps and SAP Fiori apps also. That means the behavior of those above methods are common for both UI5 and Fiori development. The behavior wise, the coding wise, and these methods and its related functionalities, they're common for all types of UI5 Fiori apps, whether it is a standard app or it can be a custom application. So it doesn't matter. So here you can see. So when you open any standard application, either it will use first method, or it can use second method, or a third method, or a fourth method. So ultimately, every standard Fiori app also comes under one of this category. Depending upon the requirement, we have to categorize it. But ultimately, this is the overall framework that should be on your fingertips when you start your development. So, okay, let me just write that as well. The above methods are common for custom applications and even standard Fiori applications. So that means if you want to make change in any standard app, you need to understand all these basics. To make any simple change in any standard app, you need to understand all these basics and you need to develop custom applications first. So based on that, you can make changes and we can go for further enhancements. Okay, so here you can see. So when we go for front end, right? So you can see, let me just navigate through the application and with various functionality. This is a custom application. Just observe here. Let me run this once. We are connecting to that app. It's a custom application. And so this is an initial screen. You can get initial screen like this. It's a Fiori app. And when you select a record, technically it goes to the second screen here. Technically it goes to second screen. And you can have some forms like this. We can have various types of forms with various screen elements here. You can see that. And not only screen elements, here you can see we have a list screen element here. And not only list, we will be having a table screen element here with various functionalities. Table screen element. And not only that, you can see there will be a micro chart. You can represent data in micro chart, and you can also display data from multiple services. You can also display data by using charts in Fiori HANA based backend systems. We can get the data and we can display under different types of charts here. That is possible. And not only charts, what we can do, we can also use HTML features. We can use audio video integration. So all HTML features, we can use it here if needed. And we can also use a fragment. We can reuse the screen element through a fragment. And if you want, you can also use a nested view concept. That means a screen inside screen. We are going to do that. And not only that, here you can see, we can also download the file. We can also upload the file. For example, if I select for some ID, when I click on get file, so the file is downloaded from the backend via OData service. That's a random file. If I select something like 1006, when I click on download, you can also download a PDF file, something like this. So file handling is also possible from UI5 Fiori apps. And not only that, you can see, so if you want to use function import in the OData service, based on some input, we can expect our output here. Based on country, we are trying to fetch data. So in this case, we can also use something like a function import. And not only that, you can see different types of layouts. We can have a splitter layout, something like this. Horizontal layout, vertical layout. For screen designing, we use layout concept. And similarly, we can also perform all types of database operations here. You can see something like there is a simple form here, and we can perform all types of database operations, insert, update, delete, and we can also fetch the data accordingly. And similarly, what we can do is, if you want, you can get a single record, not only collection of records. Here we are getting collection of records based on some input. For example, US, something like this. On get data, the records are fetched successfully and the respective data is available here. So here we are getting collection of records. But not only collection of records, we can also get single record. That is possible. 1001 on get record, you can get that record. So that is also possible here. You can see. So not only that, you can see there will be several other options. Let me highlight here. For example, I'm selecting a record somewhere here. Let me fetch some data. On fetching data, you can see we are able to get records here. But what user can do? User can select a record. So the selected record, we can take it to the next screen. These are all very common functionalities. I mean to say technically common functionalities. And based on this header record, we can also get its items here. So when we provide some input as a header record, then we can also get its corresponding item data simultaneously. Say for example, if you want to go back, you can go back and you can select some other record, 1006. So that is selected record. On items, you can get its corresponding items. There are only 2 items here. So on each selected header record, we can get its corresponding items. That is possible. So you can see if there are multiple records, you can see you can also get those multiple records into a table again. So, and screen to screen navigation can happen from one screen to another screen. We are going to apply routing technique. That means for navigation purpose. And not only that, here you can see the data that is coming to a table. We can also download to an Excel sheet. These are all common functionalities. We are going to develop from scratch level. Download data to Excel sheet. So the data gets downloaded and you can open comfortably here. So this is the data, whatever the data we are trying to show, that is coming from backend OData service dynamically. And we are trying to access via front-end app. So these things are common. And not only that, you can see, if I go to fourth view. So in fourth view, you can see something like there is header input record, collection of item records you can provide by clicking add item. You can add the items here. If you want to delete, you can delete the items. And so ultimately you can provide header record here, and you can provide collection of items here, and you can perform insert functionality. So that can be done through create deep entity method. As I said, inserting header plus item. So this type of screens, generally, they're commonly available in custom development and standard applications. So we can insert both header and items through this type of screen. And not only that, if required, you can see, let me go to another screen, second screen. And here we can see from Fiori application, I want to go to some transaction code. I want to open a regular ABAP screen. Then you can click on some link and it opens this one. Let me log in. So it opens your normal ABAP transaction code. In this case, it is opening create master data, that is MM01. MM01, that's a transaction code we are trying to open on click of this. So that is also possible. From Fiori, you can click some a button or a link. Based on that, you can navigate to your original ABAP screen in case if needed. And not only that, you can see here in this screen, we can also perform all types of validations. We can provide some input. We can provide some input here. And based on the input, we can apply validations here. We can apply validations. So if the value is perfect, then you'll get a tick mark symbol. If the value is wrong, then you'll get a cross symbol. If the length is not proper, then you'll get here the length is not proper. So you're getting first name is invalid. So length should be, in this case, I think it is more than 12 characters. And not only that, if it is US, it is okay. If it is India, it is okay. But if it is XYZ, then it is not okay. So you can apply all screen related validations here. So dynamically, you can show some screen element image with some message here. That is possible. And the salary must be, it should not be in characters. It should be something like in terms of integer. Then only it will accept. Otherwise, you'll get an error. That means you'll get a tick mark, a cross mark symbol. And if I provide some password, just for knowledge purpose, I provided it. So it should have something like minimum one uppercase, one smaller case, one special character, and one numeric. If it is not satisfied, you'll get an error message. And here you can see this is like, let me provide like this. Now it contains all the things, so it is proper. Now mobile number, it should be 10 numbers here, something like this. Then only it is valid. If you type more than 10 or any other extra character, then it will show something like error message. So message handling validations, we are going to do it. And there is a start date, end date. We can also show some calendar here. We can show calendar, something like this, start date, end date. And if end date is less than start date, then you'll get an error here. But if end date is greater than start date, then there won't be any problem. The input is valid. And you can also accept input in the form of credit card format. You can see that. We can also accept input in the form of credit card format. So 16 digit, and that also can be validated. And you can see here, there are several screen elements like checkbox, switch, rating, sliders, timers. All these are Fiori related screen elements. And something like This is a multi-input, and there can be drop downs here. There can be something like radio buttons, and we can also submit the data. We are going to do it practically. And not only that, the drop down can get data from backend system here. You can get data from backend system through OData service. All these things are possible. And you can also get data from backend system and display data through multi-combo box here. Multi-combo box. So these are all screen elements. You can select some values. And here, not only that, there is a list screen element. So if I provide some input, so those records will be displayed. Records matching with that. If I provide something like Kiran, so that record will be displayed. So these are all very common functionalities. And if I don't provide input, then you'll get all records here. So this is a list screen element in this case. So we are going to use all these various screen elements. So that's the reason why here you can see SAP provides more than 150 screen elements. Most of the screen elements we are going to experience practically in different examples, right? So after this, here you can see, I think I'll stop here, and okay, I'll just take another 15 minutes. Then after that, I'll clarify your doubts if you have any. So what we are going to do is, from the next session, we are going to start with OData service development. I think most of the people are from ABAP background. So I will start with OData first. Then we will go with SAP Fiori like apps and SAP Fiori apps, and last SAP Ui5 app. So this is a sequence we are going to follow. And in most of the real-time applications, these things are very important. There are 4 things we are going to discuss, but in real-time point of view, OData is important. Fiori-like apps are important. Fiori apps are important. Ui5 apps, I think nowadays they are not using it. I am going to explain practically, no need to worry, but real-time point of view, 95% of the clients, they are trying to use the first 3 options. Okay. So, okay, so in this case, in case of OData, what we do is every OData service project contains something like 4 main folders. Let me just give overview of data model, and there is service implementation, runtime artifacts. For OData development, we have to use all these things, and service maintenance. So these are the 4 main folders for every OData ABAP project which we create using SCGW. You can take any project related to sales order, purchase order, or a custom OData service, but ultimately it contains these things. And in case of data model, what we are going to do is, like in data model, we are going to use 3 main options. One is entity type, then entity set, and principal, something like, okay, first let me write association set. And here we can have principal entity type. I'll just give the overview as of now. First, let me write this, and dependent entity type. And not only that, there can be a principal entity set, and there can be dependent entity set. And not only that, there can be referential constraint and navigation property. So in the front-end development, in OData service development, inside data model, you'll find all these different sections. So there are 4 folders. In the first folder, you'll find all these various subcategories. That is data model. So in entity type, what we do is we use entity type to maintain collection of fields. Whichever fields are required for front end, those fields we define at OData level inside entity type. In the front end, I may require 10 fields. All those 10 fields should exist at OData level under entity type. So not only fields, it contains fields with data type and length. It contains data type as well as length. I think you are already aware of it, but sequence wise, let me go it here. And this is something like entity type. You can compare this as it is similar to something like a normal ABAP structure. If you compare with normal ABAP, this is exactly similar to a structure in normal ABAP. But what is entity? Entity is an option. We are going to use it to hold single record at runtime. When we execute our service, we try to hold single record sometimes with the help of entity. And this entity is something similar to, like work area. In your normal ABAP, this is something like similar to normal ABAP as work area. You can just compare like that. And we are going to use entity set, and this entity set is to hold something like collection of records at runtime. At OData level, entity set is something similar to like a normal internal table. Not exactly same, but almost similar to that. Entity set is an option at OData level, which can hold records, collection of records at runtime, same like our normal internal table. But in OData level, we have to use these technical terms. And here, principal entity type, this is to maintain collection of fields, something like collection of fields related to header data. So we are going to maintain collection of fields related to header data, and that entity type, we call it as principal entity type. And there is dependent entity type. We are going to use this to maintain something like collection of fields related to something like item data. One header record can have collection of item records. So item records fields are also maintained here through dependent entity type, just the fields. And principal entity set. So we use this to hold collection of header records, one or many records. We can use principal entity set in order to hold collection of header records at runtime when OData service is executed. And there is dependent entity set. So this is to hold collection of item records at runtime, one or many records at runtime. So principal entity set holds collection of header records. Dependent entity set holds collection of item records. And in case of association, association is the relationship between principal entity type and dependent entity type. So between principal entity type and dependent entity type, we can establish a relationship, and that relationship we call it as association here. So that means this is the relationship. So relationship between two entity types. Between two entity types, we establish the relationship through association concept. And not only that, we are going to use association set, and that is also the relationship. So relationship between principal entity set and dependent entity set. So there can be two entity sets, that is principal entity set and dependent entity set. So when you establish the relationship between these two things, we call it as association set. So this is, in simple words, this is the relationship between something like two entity sets. And there is a referential constraint here. Referential constraint is nothing but the common field between principal entity type and dependent entity type. So referential constraint is also one of the option. We have to use it in order to maintain a common field. There should be a common field between header and items. So common field exists between principal entity type and dependent entity type. So that common field at OData level, we call it as referential constraint. And navigation property, this is used in front end to execute something like create deep entity methods. We are going to execute all these things, create deep entity and get expanded entity. So in order to execute these type of methods, we have to make use of navigation property. That is compulsory. So when I use practically, then I'll give more clarity about this. No need to worry, because this is totally interrelated between front end and OData. So these are the options that we have to be familiar with before we develop the first service. All these options comes under data model. And not only that, as I told you, there is service maintenance here, or sorry, service implementation. So under service implementation folder, so these options will be available. Whatever the methods I've discussed here, right? So like create entity, get entity, update entity, delete entity, get entity set, execute action, update stream, get stream, create deep entity, and get entity set. All these OData methods are technically available under service implementation. So when you open the OData project, then you will find all these methods under service implementation in general. Okay, so this is one thing you need to notice. As part of service implementation, you'll get those things. So all the methods mentioned above are available under service implementation category. Just I've written a simple shortcut note. And not only that, there is one more option like runtime artifacts here. So runtime artifacts, they are nothing but runtime classes. Runtime artifacts, they're technically collection of classes here. We are going to use those classes at OData level. Something like there will be a class with MPC and we call it as model provider class. When we use it practically, then I'll explain. I'll introduce each and every detail of MPC class. But this is part of runtime artifacts. And not only that, we are going to have MPC extension. So we call this as model provider extension class. And then there will be DPC, like that is data provider class. We are going to use this as well. And there is DPC extension. We call it as data provider extension class. And not only that, I can say there is underscore SRV, that we call it as registered model. This is not a class. This is not a class. It is just the service name. And then you will get MDL. We call this as registered this is registered service and this is registered model. So this is also not a class. Frankly speaking, this is not a class. But technically, when you write the code at OData level, ultimately we are going to use these different classes. First 4 different classes, we are going to use it for implementation of all these methods. And not only that, we are going to make use of service maintenance. Service maintenance. So that is another folder. Under this, you will find register option and error log, and then you will find gateway client. Gateway client. So I mean to say these are the 3 main categories inside service maintenance. Like you can see, register is to, it's something like to activate or register the service. Activating is technically like registering the service in OData. And error log, it's very simple. This is to find out or trace out the errors which are occurred during OData service execution. So this is to find or trace out errors which are occurred during execution of your service. And there is a gateway client. We are going to use this to test OData service functionality. This is a temporary screen. So what we do after developing OData service, we have to test it immediately through gateway client. But there are some third-party clients like REST client. You can also use this. This is a third-party simple software. This you will find it at browser level. So this is also similar to your gateway client. Whatever we do it in gateway client, we can also do it from REST client, which is a third-party software in a browser. This also can be used to test OData services. I mean to say OData functionalities. And but where exactly the service is used? The actual OData services are consumed in front-end SAP Ui5 Fiori once the service is ready. If the service is ready, then that service you can consume under a Ui5 Fiori app. But how this service can be consumed? SAP Ui5 Fiori apps, these are front-end apps, they consume OData service using OData model class. This is very important in Ui5 Fiori. So once after testing your service, the service has to be consumed inside UI5 Fiori frontend, and that service consumption will take place with the help of OData model class. So what OData is going to do is, let me just use a simple diagram here, like, so there is SAP UI5 Fiori frontend, front-end screens or apps. And here you will find something like OData services. And as you know, these are for database operations. But technically, the front-end screens has to consume and access the OData services to execute database functionality. So front-end UI5 Fiori will consume this so-and-so OData service with the help of OData model class. The purpose is just to consuming, or I can say access any OData service. We have to use this class. So OData model class has to be used whenever you want to access or consume any type of service. But after consuming OData service, what we do, we try to perform database transactions by sending the data, and we can receive the data between front-end and OData. So after the service is consumed, we need to send data here, and we can receive data from here. So the point here is OData model class is not only to access a service, it is used to send the data, receive the data, and it is used to trigger all these front-end methods: bind element, update, remove, bind rows, aggregation, call function, create, bind rows. So the front-end methods are triggered by consuming OData service by using this particular OData model class. While calling the methods, we send the data and we can also receive the data. So this is the main purpose of OData model. And once again, this is common class for both UI5 development and Fiori development. The behavior coding syntax is same. So let me just write a simple note. Okay, I've already written OData model class. Very simple, very important. So this OData model class is used to consume or access OData service for dealing with database functionalities. And OData model class is used to send data, or you can receive data between SAP UI5 Fiori frontend and OData service with backend. And not only that, I can say OData model class, we are going to use it in the front end, and this class is used to trigger all OData service methods, like, for example, CRUD queue methods. Whenever you want to execute any of these methods, so the front end has provided the front end related methods, but all those front end methods can be triggered only after using OData model class. So I've written this in 3 lines. You can just refer later, but we are going to do it practically. All these things in detail, everything, whatever I explained, we are going to experience practically, screen by screen, operation by operation, everything we are going to deal with that. Okay, so I'll just save this and I'll stop for today's session. let me just close this. This is already in the note file. This is not required. This we are going to do it practically and everything, so I need not take that screenshot. Okay, let it be here. SAP Ui5 Fiori frontend versus OData services backend. These are the methods. Then, okay, this is also important. OData model class. Okay, so this is not required. It's just a note file. Okay, I've saved all the diagrams, important diagrams, and all the text, everything is written here. So after every session, I'll be forwarding it to you. I'll forward it to Shiva. I think Shiva can forward it to you. So you can use it for future reference. And okay, in case if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Thanks, Vijay. Thanks for the session.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's open it for questions.
Okay. Yeah.
You guys can unmute on the left, at the bottom on the left mic button.
Yes, yes. They can unmute and you can speak and you can ask your questions if any.
And one point, Vijay, I mean, most of the team members recently for the past few weeks, we have installed Eclipse and as well as Web IDE.
Okay.
I believe, okay. I mean, you may not, you can just give the overview and just skip the installation sessions.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Okay, but did you add that service destination? Service destination is required inside SAP Web IDE for connecting to SAP OData service. So without that, we can't proceed further.
Okay, so that we can, yeah, probably we can review and you can explain that. But yeah, so installation part, Eclipse and Web IDE, I mean, team, everybody has installed in there.
So everyone has installed locally or they are using cloud one, cloud Web IDE or local web?
Web IDE locally. Web IDE locally.
Right? Yeah, Web IDE is local.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I recommend you to install locally itself because that will be much faster and we can make modifications and test it very easily. So once after getting some hands-on experience on local Web IDE, the same code you can replicate in the cloud as well. There is no much change. But whatever it may be, SAP Web IDE should have a service destination which connects to OData service, something like this. You can also test it after the training. Here you can see. When you create a project, you should get this. Then only you can proceed further. Okay, so
yeah, we were able to get this.
Here you can see something like here in service catalog, you should get this service destination with which you want to connect to. So yes. In our case, I am using EH7 that connects to our OData service. So let me just connect here. If the connection is successful, then what happens is you will get the list of services here, all the list of OData services you can see, and we can select a service and we can proceed further. We can start writing the code in the front end.
Sure. Oh, we will explore that and get back.
Okay, so if this service destination is not available, just try to intimate me so that I can give the steps to create that destination as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Then yeah. Rakesh, Vijay, other Shiva, anybody has questions? Please feel free to ask.
Yeah, I'm Venkat here. So for the updation method, for the updation method, can we upload the multiple records?
Yes. So for that, we have to use like batch technique that is possible. We can call this update method multiple times. And in that case, what we do is, so here, if required, we can call multiple methods in a single request. In a single request, we can put all the multiple methods and execute our service. So that is possible through batch technique. So we are going to use that technique as well. Yeah.
Okay. And also, can we upload the Excel file from Fury
Yes.
to that?
We can upload,
Okay.
yes. We can
So
upload
we
all
are
types
using,
of files like PDF, text, doc, JPG, all types of files are supported. So there is a file uploader screen element. We have to use that, and we can, this is from SAP UI Unified. So under this library, we have a file uploader screen element. So screen elements, most of the time I'll be using these screen elements, but that is nothing but UI elements, or you can call them as user interface elements, or sometimes we can also call it as controls, UI controls. So the meaning is same. So in our Fiori front end, there is a file uploader screen element under this library. So we can use that to upload any type of file. Venkat, is it clear?
Yeah. I'm clear.
Yeah. Then.
Yeah, can we generate the Adobe forms from Fury? Not single,
no, not Adobe forms in the front end. Whatever the Adobe form available in your normal ABAP system, that Adobe form you can convert into an Xstring format. Okay, so or I can say binary format. So whatever Adobe form you have, you take that entire Adobe form or a smart form and put it into Xstring or a binary format, and with IS media resource and there is something like ER stream. So ER stream will be helpful for downloading that Adobe form or a PDF file in the front end. So, but the point here is inside OData service itself, you have to use your normal ABAP technique to deal with Adobe forms. There is no direct technique in the Fiori to deal with that.
So in the OData through string format, you will render the data and it will be shown on the front end screen through the
exactly.
UI5 elements.
Exactly. Yes.
From this method, can we execute the multiple forms?
Which method?
So same Xstream. So I can convert the data into Xstream extremes. Then I can see the multiple forms in the front end.
We can, I think, but what we need to do is we have to use again. I think for that batch technique has to be used. I think I'm not exactly sure, but whenever you go with multiple things, batch technique comes into picture in general.
Okay.
So even for multiple Adobe forms, I think we can execute the same method twice with different files.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for every multiple, need to use the batch method.
Yes. So that is the main purpose of batch technique here. Yes.
And also Fury does, Fury UFI don't have the templates, at least basic templates.
No,
Only
there is no template in SAP Ui5. Ui5 is just a framework with the basic libraries, properties, classes, etc. So let me just show that here so that you may get some idea. Let me go to that SAP help documentation. So you can see, so under SAP Fiori, you can see these are various controls. I said there are more than 150 screen elements for screen designing in Fiori. So you can see all those screen elements. But all these screen elements, they are part of the UI5 framework itself. For example, there is a button. So button is a class, but this is a class from SAP UI5 library itself. Here you can see button is a class. Under this library, I'll explain in detail. Other people, you need not worry. When I go with the documentation, when I start Fiori, I'll introduce what is class and etc. But for doubt clarification, I'm going with this one, button, and button is part of so-and-so library, but it is technically part of UI5 framework itself. Okay, so
Okay.
in UI5, we can use direct screen elements with the libraries and the classes. But in theory, there are two things. In theory, what we do is we use UI5 framework, libraries, methods, etc., plus theory templates.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the main purpose of template? Advantage of template is very simple. If you use template, some piece of code is auto-generated, and the preloading of various files are handled automatically. As a developer, we need not really worry about how one file should be connected with another file in developing the application. So these are interrelated files. All those are made with a connection when you use a template. So template itself handles the preloading of various files, and template will generate some piece of code. On top of that, we can write our own coding. So the only advantage is in short time we can complete end-to-end application. So the point here is when we use a template, what happens is the list of files will be auto-generated, okay, which are required to run any normal functionality. So all the list of apps are list of files are also auto-generated, which are used to run the app. So the runtime files are generated through template. So you need not maintain a connection between one file and another file. The framework itself will take care of. Template itself will take care of that. So, but in case of normal UI5, if you use normal UI5 app, then as a developer, we need to write each and every line on our own from scratch level. From scratch level, we have to write it. So that is a point. But when you use template, you can generate some code, you can preload the libraries, we can preload the files, and then we can write our required code and then proceed. But in case of UI5, everything has to be done manually by a developer. Okay.
Yeah. Vijay has another question. He is not able to unmute himself.
Okay.
So his question is basically, how do we do the error handling? Which errors are happened at the server side? Does the methods, OData methods, has the error codes to handle those?
Yes, we have. So here you can say, let me go back to this. Say for example, if you're calling bind rows, or if you're calling, for example, create method. So from front end we are calling create method, but it in OData level it is executing create entity. And if this method is successfully executed, we can send some success message. If this method is failed to execute the operation, then we can send a failure message to the front end. So that means here callback functions comes into picture. Callback functions are used, like one is success callback function, and there will be failure callback function for every method. So if the OData operation is success, you can send some message from OData and you can execute a success callback function in the front end. And if the operation at OData level, if it is failed, then failure callback function is executed. So to be more specific, let me go to this diagram. Anyhow, we are going to discuss that in CRUD operations, but let me just give some idea. Yeah, here. Say for example, now this is a situation. What we do from front end, we are calling create method, right? But technically at OData level, it is calling create entity method. Now in create entity method, we perform insert statement. Now, if insert operation, if database operation is success, if database operation execution is success, then send success message from here. If OData operation is failed, then you can send error message from here. That is possible. And if you are sending success message in the front end, you can display by using success callback function. We call it a success callback function and failure callback function. So the point is, each and every method in OData is designed such a way that there will be two possibilities, success or failure. In case of success, automatically in the front end, success callback function is triggered. In case of execution failure, in the OData, failure callback function is triggered in the front end. So that is how the framework is designed by SAP to trigger this callback function so that you can display error message or a success message, something like that, based on the activity. Okay, got some idea?
Yep. Yeah, we are almost past 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yep. Anybody has any questions, you can write down and send it to us, and Vijay can respond back in the next session.
Yeah.
Yep.
At any time, you can send an email so that I can reply. You can get more clarity on that. So after the session also, you may get some questions. So you can just send those questions to my email ID. I'll try to reply to that.
Okay. Sarvana, do you want to add anything? Are we good for today? Okay, so maybe he's unmute or joined other session. Okay, so we can take a pass today.
Okay.
Thanks for your time, Vijay.
Okay.
Let's connect tomorrow.
Okay. Are you able to follow these things? Is this speed is okay, or you want me to go a little bit fast or a little bit slow?
I think I'm okay. I will take the feedback from others and get back to you if anything.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Vijay.
Mostly in OData, you may feel little bit bored because you are already aware of this OData. But in UI5 theory, everything will be very interesting. And it's almost like a simple screen development. We are going to do it in UI5 theory. That will be more interesting compared to OData. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thanks, Vijay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good night. Yeah.
Okay.